On this last Thursday of May, the 27th day of this beautiful month, I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program, and we're here virtually and by virtue of our creative technician, Lindsay Lasanti, who brings us the Zoom connection. Lindsay's a graduate of Otterbein University. Katie Fisher is a graduate of Columbus College of Art and Design. Just joined us there and is our pro in getting out the word for Conversations and Coffee for our beloved Recreation and Parks Cultural Arts Center, the beautiful brick building, the Civil War era, located in downtown Columbus. Our director is Jeffrey Martin. Our associate director is Todd Camp, with a superb staff of Vazzy Douglas, whose beautiful artwork is behind me. She's also a fashion designer, and Nelson Wilson, Jennifer McCracken, and an amazing faculty of art teachers. We're delighted to have with us today our guest, Bryan Fumo, a glass artist whose story is about so much that has gone into his beautiful creations. I visited his amazing gallery yesterday. Bryan shared with me his story of how he evolved into becoming a glass artist. When he was in high school, he discovered the genetics, that he shares, that laid the preliminary pathway to where he is now. The concept that how 4 simple amino acids can be arranged into something as complex as the eye has always fascinated him. The idea of something simple creating something complex resonated on a level that no other subject did. So Bryan, you took a metal art class and enjoyed, and being able to create objects in 3 dimensions that for you 2 dimensions simply don't have. Bryan went on to study molecular genetics at The Ohio State University, but still wanted to create metal art. So he asked the head of the sculpture department if he could take a class in order to work on his art. He was then introduced to glass blowing due to the metal studio being adjacent to the glass studio. What pulled him in, he says, is how many complex designs and shapes could be created in glass with a limited number of tools. And having been in your gallery yesterday, I saw what you were doing, and how you have come to this. But it was at that moment then that you realized, gravitated toward the systems that form complexity from simplicity. And once Bryan started on his glass career, he always wanted to keep in touch with his artistic roots, which were with metalwork. The challenge of designing glass and trying to find a balance aesthetically between the glass as well as the metal, with each not taking away from the other in his main inspiration in creating work. He was attached to the process. The amount of knowledge required to prevent the glass from getting too cold or too hot is paramount to the completion of a finished piece. Bryan decided to share a multitude of different glass processes so that when he graduated, he could be more well-rounded. Wow. We studied various disciplines such as Italian techniques, as well as solid and blown sculpting. As you share your amazing work, Bryan, talk about gravity and how you shared with me that the glass artist is constantly fighting gravity to keep the work on center, in place. You also use gravity to create forms, and another common theme you incorporate into your work are spheres in the combination of sizes in the number 3. I love this. This has always been a common theme in your work due to the fact that there are 3 main celestial bodies in our vicinity that affects us: the sun, the earth, the moon, and each carry a certain amount of gravitational effect on our environment. Wow. And after college, you got a job working as a manager for an online cell phone company. And during this time, Bryan was able to fund building his studio from the ground up. And that's the studio we were in yesterday, huh?
Yeah, yes.
Wow. He had to learn about electricity, gas systems, and all of the components that control each system. He was able to work himself up to create the research and development department. Now, that took you to China, Germany, Spain, Italy, France. Bryan's always been interested in languages and cultures, so he went with this opportunity until he was able to start glass blowing full time. He lived on the border of Germany for 9 months, then the Netherlands, and would travel to Amsterdam on the weekends. He loved the Art of Nouveau artwork, ironwork, that the city offered especially, and that was in Amsterdam, at the Amrath Hotel. Bryan says he incorporated the flowing movements from the ironwork that he found there. And I Googled that hotel. That is an extraordinary hotel. Bryan, we so look forward to sharing your amazing art. And I want to say, I couldn't leave your studio gazing at one of the pieces. And my husband picked it up yesterday. He was with us. And so he purchased it for me. He said, and you were there to witness his sweet kiss there, Bryan.
Yes, I was.
He said,
quite nice.
Happy Pentecost, happy birthday, happy Mother's Day. And he presented this to me. Isn't this exquisite? And we got to see the instruments that brought this about. So tell us about it now. We're so glad to have you.
When I was a child, I would record some of my favorite TV shows, Disney shows, and on VHS, because that was the thing back then, showing my age. And I would pause, and then I would actually just sit there and try to replicate a bunch of the drawings. And I wanted to be an animator when I was a child because I loved drawing so much. But then throughout going into maybe middle school, I started really getting into science, moved away from the art, and got really into electricity. And I was building a bunch of strange things in my parents' basement on the weekend: Tesla coils, Leyden jars, things like this, doing experiments. And then in high school, that's when I got into genetics. And I really gravitated towards genetics, I think, mainly because that recurring theme of complexity from simplicity. It's very intriguing to me how so many different things can arise from such a very basic, small set of codes, just repeated in different sequences. But at the same time, because I graduated from Hilliard-Davidson, it was a farming community maybe in the 80s. So they had a bunch of welders left over from the agricultural department. And being that it grew up into an area that is more suburban, there was no need for it. But instead of getting rid of the welders and stuff, they converted it to a metal art class. And being that I thoroughly enjoy playing with fire, because I'm a fire bug, obviously, I just kept taking class after class after class and going in on my lunch and after school, because they allowed me to go in. And it got to a point where actually I noticed that my skill level got to a point where I could actually make some really interesting things.
That's wonderful.
And then my mother went to, I think, the Worthington Art Festival or show and met a metal artist. His name is Stephen Bush. And then I started to apprentice with him when I graduated high school. And he taught me a bunch about fabricating metal and aesthetics and the play between positive and negative space in the piece, as well as the idea, like I was saying in the artist statement, this is 100% true. You can sketch something two-dimensionally on paper, but it doesn't always look as nice three-dimensionally. So you have to always kind of make adjustments and make sure that you walk around the piece probably 360 degrees and make sure that everything is aesthetically pleasing from every different angle. And that challenge in itself, I think I really enjoy.
Oh, I'm eager to see your pieces, walking around them 360 degrees.
Yes,
Let's see them. Let's see, as you are speaking, to see the beauty of your work.
I rearranged them. I was trying to catalog them and put them in some kind of a sequence that makes sense. This is a metal bonsai that I made. This is relatively recently. It was a commission that I did because I was doing art shows and I needed a stand for ornaments, and I didn't want to do a regular ornament tree. And I've always liked bonsais. I dabbled in trying to grow bonsais when I was younger, like in high school. Wasn't really that good. I think it's the time constraint. And I decided that the metal bonsai might be a little bit more attractive than making a generic looking Christmas tree. But what was interesting is I spent a lot of time on this, and the whole idea was to try to have a interesting, different tree to sell ornaments on, and people were more interested in the bonsai. The metal work from the bonsai, I did put a lot of time and effort into it, and I did enjoy it.
Beautiful.
And this was a stand that I made, another commission. Again, this kind of has more of the flowing metal work. It was supposed to mimic a dress for a stone sculpture that goes on top of it, and I wanted to have the metal work kind of flow with the original piece. And this actually was quite challenging. It's forged metal. I'm not sure if you can actually see, but it's tapered down to yeah, you can see where it's tapered right over here in the center, and welded together. But just kind of shows the type of artistic direction I go with my metal, the flowing lines and nice subtle curves, along with playing with the positive and the negative space. So this piece, and I apologize for the low quality. This was made circa, I'm guessing 2006. I was at OSU when I made this, and this was after a summer where I was working pretty much full time at Glass Access, assisting other artists. And it was my first experience with getting heat sick. So I created this piece because this is kind of how I felt that whole summer, kind of like an uprooted tree constantly trying to reach for water because I was dehydrated all the time. I could never hydrate myself enough that summer, and just never really being able to get enough water.
It's beautiful. It comes across as beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Meaningful as you described what you experience was, huh?
that's exactly how I felt. And I don't have a better photo. This was from a friend, and if you were to look at the entire display, you could actually see the branches are broken off, like they were kind of wilted, falling off, and broken as it's crawling towards the water. And I don't know if you can zoom in on the hand, but the
Ah,
hand actually comes down and is trying to touch the water but can't get it.
ah.
That is that was so long ago, and my parents had the piece and they accidentally broke it, so I was never able to get a better photo, unfortunately. But I guess that's it's the fun aspect of glass. At least I have that photo. I've had other pieces that I made that were amazing and never got a photo before I put it away and it broke.
Mm.
And it just kind of will live on in my memory.
Mm.
So this piece was my ex's stepfather is Brazilian, and this is my first. He took me to Brazil. That was my first time abroad, and he's Jewish, and I made this as kind of a thank you present for him for him taking me to Brazil and showing me around. And it's basically, you know, the Cristo that's famous in Rio de Janeiro. I just converted it into a Jewish symbol versus a Christian one, since Henry was Jewish. kind of a joke, but at that time I was working with a famous artist. His name is Charles Lowry, and he was in town teaching classes as well as I was working with him. So I was able to go in and practice a lot of the sculpting techniques. Like I said, I wanted to kind of be more well-rounded with the types of things I can create out of glass. So it was practice as well as present and fun, obviously.
Yes, that is gorgeous. I was with the Jewish community Saturday for Havdalah Sabbath. They would, in Wolf Park, it was simply beautiful. And I think they would love this piece.
This went to his mother
Oh,
when he passed. We gave it to his mother when he passed. Not sure where it is. I bet the family still has it because everybody really liked it a lot.
well, beautiful.
It meant a lot to him, which means a lot to me. Okay, this is a little dark. Let's turn this up. This is just when I started getting into flameworking, which is another discipline of glass blowing. When you came in, Ellen, that's called offhand blowing. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said.
And
Oh.
this is more hands-on. You have a torch in front of you where you can melt and manipulate the glass. And I just was interested in learning that different type of glass making. And there is huge differences between the two techniques. Heat control, completely different, as well as I can get really fine detail, which I like in this piece. Like if you look at the flowers, like I can get quite detailed undulations of the sides of the flower, which I like. That is a little bit more difficult when you're doing offhand blowing in the hot shop like I showed you, because the constant reheating of the glass, it'll start to soften the edges. It's very difficult to get nice, crisp lines in glass because glass always wants to ball up and turn kind of cartoony.
Ah,
That's why you see kind of a lot of, with the exception of few extremely talented sculptors,
hmm.
most of the time you will see more cartoony sculptures because of this reason, because you have to keep reheating the glass in order to prevent it from cracking. If you let the glass get a little too cold, it will break on you, and you will, sometimes you can fix the piece. Most of the time you can't, but that constant reheating cycle will soften those corners. So I kind of wanted to learn this so that way I could have an option if I needed to do something a little bit more intricate and detailed. And this is also an old one.
When
But
you, I'm sorry. I
go
had a
ahead.
question. When you're making a piece like this, do you start like do you make this like the petals separately and then attach them all together, or do you start from like one piece of glass and work out?
Well, good eyes, Lindsay. I actually do make them separate. You can see, I don't know if you can see, yep. Right there, that connection. Those are separate pieces. So I will make each one of those petals separate, and then I put them in a kiln, and then in the kiln I have it, it sits around maybe 1,000, 1,100 degrees or so. And then I pick them up, and then I heat the connection area, and then I stick them together. Glass, when it is molten, will stick to itself, so it's quite easy to add pieces and parts. But the trick is making sure that the heats are even so it doesn't crack. But I did actually, I was actually kind of proud of this one. I really liked how, especially like the front of the cup, the by the red right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that that nice little undulation between the on the rim is nice, and that wouldn't normally last if I was making that in the hot shop.
Ah, gorgeous.
So this is quite a large plate, actually. I threw this in here just to show you the difference between what most glass blowers would do for a stand. This is kind of a complex piece to make. Each one of those circles that you see, the center circle, is basically a cup. And then the middle white threads, it's called merletto. It's Italian for lace. Not sure if you can zoom in, but it actually has the appearance of lace. It's a way of manipulating the color to fold over on itself. Maybe the top, yeah, 2 o'clock right there. Yeah,
Ah,
right there. You can kind of see how it folds over. That's a separate cup that you put in a kiln that sits at 1,000 degrees. And then the outside rim is yet another cup. And then again, when glass is hot enough, you can put the cups together, and then they will fuse if you get it hot enough.
oh,
And I didn't actually go too crazy with the plate stand, because this plate is about 36 inches in diameter, quite large. And I'm not sure how many people have room for it, but what's really nice about this piece is that it's a certain kind of color that, do you see how the center is orange? And then the outside is more of a greenish color. So in the bay window at my house, when the sun's going through it, it'll look all orange. And then as the sun sets, what happens is it starts to fade to a really beautiful bluish green tone. So it actually kind of changes with the sun as the sun sets, depending on the light coming through. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Lyserges Cup that was found.
Mm.
It's kind of been in the news about ancient Romans. I think it was made around 180. It has nanoparticles of silver and gold in it, and it changes color just like this. And it's a good selling point
Mm.
when you're at shows, because people really like the fact that it completely changes color with the time of the day, almost like a sundial. This is again that same technique of Merletto. If you could zoom in, Lindsay, you can see more of the detail of the lace, how it looks like it's woven. It's actually an optical illusion. It's created with putting the piece into a mold and then twisting and folding those lines over on top of themselves. So when this initially is started, all of those lines are vertical. And then I start twisting and going into a mold, a special mold, and then overlapping them and then untwisting them. And I did this because I wanted to make lighting like this, because the white lace projects a really nice shadow on the background.
Mm.
And I thought that they'd be really interesting lights to have in a house, because you could have not only just the color and the light, as you could also have shadows cast on your walls as well with it. So I spent actually a lot of time perfecting this this technique and getting it down to the point where I was actually able to, I should have put this photo in there, but I actually had them lined up where there's 3 of them in a row, 3 different colors, and that little clear window that I left that on purpose, because
Huh.
I wanted to kind of make it a little less busy so you can see what's going on, because otherwise I feel like they kind of get lost
Mm.
with the chaos. And I had them, and that line actually went all the way across 3 pieces on the booth when they were lined up. So it
Beautiful.
was just a technical challenge that I started to geek out on, which I enjoy doing.
Imagine. And wonder, I saw the glass broken on the floor, which I know is part of a process, but something as exquisite as this, I'm so happy for you this did not break. Oh,
Oh, thank you so much. Actually, I'm still on here. I'll show you the other one. I think you saw this the other day, but you can kind of see how I have, oops,
yeah.
how it is quite similar, and the lines
Yes, that line. Oh,
match
yeah.
up. Yes, it was many hours playing with that to get it where I like it. And the interesting thing about it is, depending on the amount of twists that you do and how many times you go in the mold, you get completely different effects. And I haven't even begun exploring those. I was just trying to get something like this down that was replicable. I like this, so I just went with this until I was happy and satisfied with being able to replicate it in case I had orders for lights, let's say.
Uh,
So this piece is a typical Italian blown vessel. If you zoom in, Lindsay, please, in the center, each one of those little color lines is called Marini, and it's Italian for Little Murano. And Murano is the island in Venice where a lot of these glass blowing techniques exploded around, I think, maybe the 1400s. I would fact check that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that is also another interesting thing that kind of grabbed my attention for glass, which is a lot of the color techniques that we use currently, they were all developed around the 1500s. And not much has really changed, to be honest. The tools have remained the same for almost 1,000 years. The color techniques were developed quite early. And there are definitely some new ones that came out, but there was kind of like an explosion of creativity around that time. And each one of those dots, I guess you could say, those yellow, orangish lines, they're just solid glass rods that are cut, and then they're put on a plate and heated up to about 1,500 degrees. So it's malleable. And then you roll it on top of a bubble.
Wow.
Similar to those little pucks that you saw on that metal table.
Yes. Yes.
Very similar to those.
I just can't believe it stays intact. It looks so delicate, but I know it's so strong. Right?
It is strong.
Yes. Oh,
It has a very high tensile strength, but it is fragile. Mainly because it doesn't flex like steel does. You can bend steel. So this was another. It's called an encalmo when you put those two cups together. Plate. I started kind of getting into more of the metal and glass, and starting to kind of change the idea of how the stand works with the glass, making that balance between the two mediums. So I think this was the first one where I kind of moved away from just trying to do the typical metal rod to more of an incorporating the metal and having it kind of accent the glass and the glass accent the metal.
oh, amazing.
And yeah, there should be videos because it's kind of hard to describe. Each one of those lines is glass comes in a bunch of different types. One of them is solid bar. And you can kind of see where it's kind of gray and black right there. So the way that I make this is I have a gray bar that is next to a black bar. And then I pick it up on that solid metal rod called the punty, which is the Italian word for bridge. And then I add a bunch of clear on it. And then it's kind of like a taffy pull when it gets hot enough. And then I twist it all the way across the studio. Then you cut it up into about 6-7 inch long pieces. And then you line them up next to each other. And the clear that's on the outside of the color is what makes that separation between the color.
Oh.
Each one of those, yeah.
Was patience always part of your psyche? You have to be so patient coming to this.
Yeah, sometimes there are times when I do get impatient. There's a lot of psychological aspects about glass. Because there's a time when you try to, and I'm a proponent of, you don't really have to be on point with your skills if you know how to fix problems. But like I was explaining to you yesterday, sometimes the glass is just going to do what it wants to do for whatever reason, and you have to know when to stop. So it is actually kind of grounding to have a medium that is basically dictating how it's going to turn out. there's only so much you can do sometimes, and knowing when to stop is actually extremely important, because you might not actually be making it any better whatsoever at all.
Oh, well, this draws me to the mantra right in the middle. I mean, it's just such a meditative piece. It's gorgeous. You know, just focus through all of the line and beauty. Mm.
Okay, so this is the evolution from that piece into more of the getting back to my roots and trying to incorporate the metal with the glass.
Mm.
The metal is hand forged. You can kind of see if you zoom in. I like to allow the ends to have more of a beaten appearance up top.
Uh-huh. Ah.
I'm not sure if you can tell 100%. Yeah, more of a rough beaten appearance, just to give it more character. You know, imperfections like we all have in life, right?
Mm.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
Wonderful.
And again, playing with the positive and the negative space, as well as finding that harmonious balance between the glass and the metal, and having one not take away from the other is it's quite challenging. There's a lot of times where I'll sketch it out. I have a rough idea, but what I really like doing is kind of taking a torch with the metal rods, and then I'm not 100% sure, so I have a metal rod that's X length, and then I just start heating it up with the hand torch, and I start bending it and making it move in different directions. It's kind of like freehand drawing, like sketching in the air. It's fun, and I have a rough idea, but there's times when it's even more fun just to kind of run with it. Like the one on the right, the purple plate,
Mhm.
that spiraling in the center was me just freehanding, having fun. There was no rhyme or reason to this one. I just kind of picked it up and went with it.
Well, I don't know what rhyme nor reason means here, but it certainly is
You
beautiful.
know, I don't know either. It's one of those things where I try to understand the motivation behind what I do.
Mm.
Not 100% sure. I know that I just like it. I feel like it is attractive, and then I just kind of go with it.
Oh,
Like most people in life, not really sure what you're doing. You're kind of moving around, but you find a way, right?
yeah. Find your way. This is a beautiful way.
Yeah,
Anthony
exactly.
Jalpi would be loving this. Your mentor for a while at OSU.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yes, he's the one who led me to you. I'm very grateful to him.
Is he on?
I don't know if he is on with us or not. No, I guess no. He's in what, California or Florida?
Yes, California, but he also might be traveling.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So this one, interestingly enough, goes on even more into the freehand work. And again, I didn't really have an idea. I had different lengths of metal rod, but you can kind of see between the ones before and this one, these have a lot more tight concentric circles going around each other. Only because I needed to do something with the metal. When I hand forge each one of those tips, it takes me about an hour and a half maybe. I do not want to cut them off. So I tried to find something to do with them. And this was kind of the end result.
Mm.
And it was also an experiment to try to find, I'm not sure if you saw in the other ones. Can you go back, Lindsay, please? So if you zoom in close to the plate, you see those little lines,
Mm-hmm.
the little metal lines that are coming up, those hold the plate in.
Ah,
Those are pretty standard. Like if you see a bunch of other glass plates, that just holds the glass in place so it doesn't move. That piece, I kind of wanted to experiment with the idea of using the
ah,
flowing lines instead of using those clips, actually bending the steel in the front and the back and moving it around the piece so I can kind of get out of that train of thought to have those clips to hold the glass in place.
mm,
So an experiment, it worked. It was a little challenging, but I actually, I do enjoy this piece. It's one of my favorites.
mm. Wonderful.
Oh, this one.
Wow.
Yeah, this was back when I was at OSU. One of the first ones that I've done, and I was experimenting with the idea of using gravity because when you blow glass, there is a constant battle with the medium, trying to kind of force it to do your will, but it does have a mind of its own. You're also having to deal with gravity. So a lot of people, when they begin to blow glass, they have issues with forgetting to turn the pipe constantly. When you stop, it falls off center, then you have to correct it. It's always correcting the glass, getting it to where you want it to be. But then I kind of wanted to play with the idea of using gravity, which kind of ties into the whole rule of three that I have, where gravity is such an important part of our lives that we don't really realize it. We take it for granted. And it's something that glass blowers have to constantly fight. So if you could zoom in on the center of the glass piece, Lindsay,
Wow.
this is good enough. You can kind of see how the glass has this bowing to it. So I was kind of playing around in the studio one day, and I wrapped the outside of the glass with a piece of clear, and then I let it get hot, and then I just kind of held it at an angle, and it created this beautiful kind of undulation with the glass where it connected to the glass piece, and then where there's an area that has negative space, it moves down. And
Gorgeous.
and what I like about it is how it kind of hits home to me with my anxiety and things like this. A lot of times I have to just allow things to happen, much like the glass. Just let it go, just let it wash over you. And I really enjoy doing pieces like this where I can just let the glass do what it wants to do, not fight it, and just go with the flow.
Oh, gorgeous. Thank you for that. Thank you. Because you gift us in your art when you do that. And
Thank you.
Murano doesn't, this is so exquisite. Murano is great, but I don't know. I find what you're doing, Bryan, is all the more beautiful because I've
Thank
been
you.
to Murano a couple of times. And at the council of Inga Smith here, who told me how to get there and get on that Vaporato and go to Murano and Burano for the lace. But this is so gorgeous. They would be gifted to have you to be working in Murano, but I know you shared with me that that wasn't your cup of tea, huh?
I'm not 100% sure. it would be factory work. But this is also kind of the direction that I enjoy going, is the metal with the glass. It kind of,
Yeah.
I know that there probably is other people out there doing it, but I haven't seen too many. It's kind of my style that I've developed over time through my experiences and my travels and stuff like this.
Mhm.
This is kind of the direction that I want to go. I'm not sure if I would be able to do that in Murano or elsewhere. I know at the Jamaja, the glass furnace in Turkey, I potentially could, because I think they have a metal worker. I taught,
Mhm.
I TA'd a class with Anthony there, I
Ah,
think in the summer of 2012.
uh-huh.
And I'm fairly certain they had a metal shop there as well. They probably do in Murano, but I haven't gone that far into exploring those possibilities, being that I started building my own studio, and then I have to kind of nurture that here, right?
Oh, we're very happy to have you here. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so this piece, another fun experimental one. Again, kind of playing with the glass and letting it kind of do its thing. It is, I have it, at OSU, we had a, what's it called? A electroforming bath. And I really liked, if you look at those corners, maybe top left, Lindsay. Yeah. So when you have the current on the electro bath, that's copper electroplated on the outside of glass. It creates these growths like nodulations. And I really liked how organic it looked, especially because a lot of my work has more of an organic flow to it. And I wanted to experiment with that. And currently I'm actually making an electro bath for more pieces like this, because I find it extremely beautiful. And the randomness of the process is interesting to me, because it's not controllable from what I understand. Maybe if I spent a long time, I could get it somewhat under control, but currently it's uncontrollable. So it's very random, and it's going to turn out how it's going to turn out.
Well, it's gorgeous how it turned out. Oh,
So this piece was inspired from a night that I had a bonfire out in my parents' backyard. I really like astronomy, stargazing, things like this. And there was one night, it was very clear, a couple, maybe 3 summers ago, and I was staring up, looking at the stars, and with my niece, and there was these fireflies kind of zooming past my view in the summer sky. So that's where the pattern for those yellow lines come from. And then again, incorporating the, especially because of that situation, the earth, the sun, the moon, all within the piece.
that bonfire makes me think of how we talked about the meaning of your last name.
Yes.
Yeah, in Italian means what?
Fumo, or smoke.
Yeah. Ah. And you're from southern, your roots are in southern Italy?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Calabria.
Uh-huh.
They very, very tiny mountain town.
Mm.
Castro Libera. It's actually pretty cool to go see. They don't actually have addresses. They just have they have the people's names. It's that small.
Oh, beautiful though. Oh.
This was one of the original ones that I did, similar to the other ones. However, I played more with the dynamic of the positive and the negative space with this one versus the other one. And it just, when I was making it, I just kept seeing somebody's face. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the red ball is the eye, and then the mouth is down here to the left.
Ah,
And then the forehead is that big arc going to the left.
uh-huh.
And again, another piece that was playing was just allowing glass to kind of take control of the situation instead of me trying to fight it, letting go, letting glass do its thing, and then making something work around the glass.
Beautiful.
Mm. This was a commission I did a year ago. It was for a gentleman that has a pineapple farm, organic one in Hawaii. And it actually is, it was very, very labor intensive. I had to actually mix those colors myself. Normally when we buy the colors, they're pretty standard, but you can also layer them and mix them and kind of mush them together to make different ones. It's not that easy, but there's a lot of experimenting involved. And it was a very challenging project, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I
Especially
can imagine
the
your
result.
customer loved it, huh?
Yeah, he wanted, and the fun thing is I thoroughly enjoy clients who want to kind of, instead of just making it look realistic, they want to kind of go outside of what things look like in terms of color. Much like the seashells. That's why I don't really want to make a seashell that looks like a seashell, because glass is pretty expensive. Why not make it a little bit more interesting, give it some flair? He really wanted to create pineapple flowers to go underneath his coffee table
Oh,
that were very vibrant and different in terms of the color, but it was a fun project, getting that orange to fade to the yellow there, as well as the blue. More of a technical piece, but it was definitely fun.
it looks like it has a life of its own, like it wants to say something. It's gorgeous.
Eat me. He did make phenomenal pineapples. He sent me some as a thank you. So okay, this is fun. Back when I was talking about that Italian technique, Merletto, how I wanted to make the lights. So this is one of the lights that I made flipped upside down. And I just noticed when I went to art shows, the other artists that would be the painters, they could make prints. Photographers can make prints. So they make something once and then they can sell reprints without doing much extra work. So this kind of came from an idea of my neighbor at Ann Arbor. He was telling me how much he made with his reprints, and then I started thinking like, well, glass is a very interesting medium because there's a play between light, and you can get a lot of different types of reactions from the light. So this is kind of an exploration into maybe selling prints with my glass. So I made the piece, and then if I start playing with the light and taking kind of more artistic photos, kind of moving into the photography genre, then I could sell prints and not have to make every single piece for a show to kind of make the booth fee. Shows are quite expensive, and when you start adding up all of the time and the food and the booth fee. So having something that is easy to replicate instead of having to make everything. Was kind of interesting. So that led me onto this kind of journey where I was taking photos in a very artistic way, and then playing with the medium that I have, right?
We are so grateful to you for being with us, and encourage people to come to, get the word out there. Any of the exhibits that you're going to be a part of, you have them on in your Facebook, in your website, because it's a beautiful journey, and
Thank you.
we are so grateful for leading us in it.
I appreciate the opportunity to give this talk.
And in 2 weeks from now, our next Conversations and Coffee will be June 10th. Can you believe that's 2 weeks, huh?
Mhm.
And Dana Grubb and Carrie Duvet are going to be part of exhibiting 4 visions of abstraction in our loft gallery. So do join us for Conversations and Coffee. And
Okay.
Katie, I'm glad to see you. Katie gets the word out there. Wasn't that great? It was wonderful.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And yeah, keep in touch, Ellen. You guys,
Mhm.
again, or all of you are more than welcome to come down and check out the studio when we're working.
So let's say it's the Bari coming from what word now? How is that rooted?
It's a
As-
city. It's a city in southern Italy.
Uh-huh.
I can't. Puglia, I think, is the region. It's on the side closer to Greece, and it was my grandfather's stage name. He was the lead musician in a swing band, and nobody really knows why he chose that. But again, I took it because Fumo means smoke, and if I did any type of Fumo glass, anything, the bong and pipe makers have so many of those the websites with those names. I already looked it up. I would get lost on Google. So I chose to go with my grandfather's stage name, which I felt is also amazing. I got my Italian citizenship through him. Drove from Rome. That's what I was telling you about with my driving anxiety. Drove from Rome down to Cosenza in
Mhm.
Calabria, and went in their office and found his birth certificate. They had these huge books, and opened it up and found his name, and it was a journey. It was very interesting. So there's kind of a deep connection between using his stage name as well as getting my Italian citizenship and giving it to my family, and
That's
just
beautiful.
really tracking my history back. I think I got it back to 1815,
Oh, that's great.
somewhere around there. Yeah, I was able to track it back with their records of the church.
So, and looking up where you're located, right off 71 until 11th to
Yes.
Essex, huh?
Yes.
And it's beautiful. You let us know when you are going to be exhibiting, and we can encourage people to go to your gallery or wherever else you might be exhibiting.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Because